We have made our way now to question 60 in this treatise on good habits, which started at 55, goes all the way to 70. And question 60 has 5 articles, how the moral virtues differ from one another. You may be aware that there are a lot of different kinds and types of moral virtues, but what exactly distinguishes one from the other? And that's what's on St. Thomas Aquinas' mind as he ponders these 5 articles. Now, the first article says whether there is only one moral virtue, and obviously the answer to this is going to be no, there's more than one moral virtue. But the way Thomas explains this is he says the moral virtues are habits of the appetitive faculty. Now, habits differ specifically according to the specific differences of their objects. Okay, so they have different objects and different moral virtues. Now, it is evident that in moral virtues, the reason holds the place of commander and mover, while the appetitive power is commanded and moved, but the appetite does not receive the direction of reason univocally, so to say, because it is rational, not essentially, but by participation. Consequently, objects made appetible by the direction of reason belong to various species according to their various relations to reason, so that it follows that moral virtues are of various species and not only one. So that's a long way of saying no, there's more than one moral virtue. All right, Article 2 says whether moral virtues about operations are different from those that are about passions. Operations are things that we do, and passions are more ways that we're affected by things outside of us. And there is clearly going to be a difference here. St. Thomas says, operation and passion stand in a twofold relation to virtue. First, as to its effects, and in this way, every moral virtue has some good operations as its product and a certain pleasure or sorrow, which are passions. So he's saying that really all the moral virtues have some of both of these, but there is still going to be a line that is drawn between them. Secondly, operation may be compared to moral virtue as the matter about which virtue is concerned, and in this sense, moral virtues which are about operations must needs differ from those which are about passions. He says in operations of this kind, there needs to be some power to regulate the operations in themselves, such as buying and selling, and all such operations in which there is an element of something due to another. For this reason, justice and its parts are properly about operations as their proper matter. So when you talk about the way we treat others, the way we relate to God, the way we relate to those below us, okay, this is an operation, and the virtue that is associated with that would be justice. That's what he's saying. And its parts, because there's various kinds of justice. Justice is a cardinal virtue, but there are others that fall underneath it. On the other hand, in some operations, good and evil depend only on commensuration with the agent. Consequently, good and evil in these operations depend on the way in which man is affected to them. And for this reason, in such like operations, virtue must needs be chiefly about internal emotions, which are called the passions of the soul, as is evidently the case with temperance, fortitude, and the like. So when it comes to the concupiscible and the irascible passions, these are different from things that are regulated by justice, which is a virtue that's more associated with operations, as he has mentioned. Article 3 says whether there is only one moral virtue about operations. Now, we've already identified it as justice, and what he's going to do is say that, yeah, there's justice, but there's different kinds of justice depending on who we're being just towards, right? All the moral virtues that are about operations agree in one general notion of justice, which is in respect of something due to another, but they differ in respect of various special notions. The reason for this is that in external operations, the order of reason is established, not according as how man is affected towards such operations, but according to the becomingness of the thing itself, from which becomingness we derive the notion of something due, which is the formal aspect of justice. Okay, so what is due to the person that we're relating to? For seemingly it pertains to justice that a man gives another his due, Wherefore all such virtues are as are about operations bear in some way the character of justice. But the thing due is not the same in all these virtues, for something is due to an equal in one way, to a superior in another way, to an inferior yet in another way. And the nature of a debt differs according as it arises from a contract, a promise, or a favor already conferred. So he's saying, yeah, there's a lot of different types of justice. And then he's going to give some examples here. Corresponding to these various kinds of debt, there are various virtues. Religion, where we pay our debt to God. Piety, whereby we pay our debt to our parents or our country. And gratitude, whereby we pay our debt to our benefactors, and so forth. All right. Article 4, whether there are different moral virtues about different passions. He says, it cannot be said that there is only one moral virtue about all the passions, since some passions are not in the same power as other passions, for some belong to the irascible and some belong to the concupiscible. On the other hand, neither does every diversity of passions necessarily suffice for a diversity of moral virtues. Now this is interesting. He says, because some passions are in contrary opposition to one another, such as joy and sorrow. Okay, those are opposites. Those are concupiscible passions that are opposites. Fear and daring, and so on. Those are irascible passions. About such passions as are thus in opposition to one another, there must needs be one same virtue, because since moral virtues consist in a kind of mean, the mean in contrary passions stands in ratio to both, even as in the natural order there is but one mean between contraries, between black and white. Secondly, because there are different passions contradicting reason in the same manner, that is, by impelling to that which is contrary to reason, or by withdrawing from that which is in accord with reason. Wherefore, the different passions of the concupiscible faculty do not require different moral virtues, because their movements follow one another in a certain order, as being directed to the one same thing, the attainment of some good or the avoidance of some evil. So just to kind of slow down here, remember, virtue is in the mean. And so if you have opposite vices, there's going to be one virtue in the middle. So he's saying that those two, even though they're opposite vices, are going to share the same virtue. And so not every single virtue is going to be associated, and not every passion is going to have its own virtue. Okay. Thus, from love proceeds desire, and from desire we arrive at pleasure. And it is the same with the opposite passions, for hatred leads to avoidance or dislike, and this leads to sorrow. Okay, so all he's done here is he's listed all 6 of the concupiscible passions and showing the relationship between them. On the other hand, the irascible passions are not all of one order, but are directed to different things. For daring and fear are about some great danger, like an evil. Hope and despair are about a difficult good, while anger seeks to overcome something contrary which has wrought harm. Consequently, there are different virtues about such like passions. Temperance about concupiscible passions, fortitude about fear and daring, magnanimity about hope and despair, meekness about anger. So there you go. So now he's attached the various virtues to the various passions. And so if you struggled with one of those passions, now you know which virtue needs to be perfected. Article 5 is the last one. He says whether the moral virtues differ in point of the various objects of the passions. Now, this is a really long corpus, and I'm only going to read a part of it because I just don't think we can read the whole thing. He says the perfection of a virtue depends on the reason, whereas the perfection of a passion depends on the sensitive appetite. Consequently, virtues must needs be differentiated according to their relation to reason, but the passions according to their relation to the appetite. Hence, the objects of the passions, according as they are variously related to the sensitive appetite, cause the different species of passions, while according as they are related to reason, they cause the different species of virtues. Now, the movement of the reason is not the same as that of the sensitive appetite. Now, I'm going to zip forward to the last paragraph because this is kind of interesting. He says, it is therefore evident that according to Aristotle, there are 10 moral virtues about the passions. Here are the 10 moral virtues about the passions: fortitude, temperance, liberality, magnificence, magnanimity, philotimia, which is a Greek word which means the love of honor, gentleness, friendship, truthfulness, and eutrapelia. There's another Greek word which means the pleasure of games, all of which differ in respect of their diverse matter, passions, or objects, so that if we add justice, which is about operations, we will have 11 in all. So those are the 11 moral virtues about the passions, and also the one about operations. All right, well, thanks for hanging with me. That's question 60 of Prima Secunda of the Summa Theologia. God bless you.